Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'll start again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Family Corner of Truly Making a Difference Ministry. This is the first Family Corner program for year 2021. This is a child protection conference. My name is Funke Ogunoiki, popularly known as Mrs. Lafunke. I'll be hosting, and you're going to be finding much more about me and about obviously my experience, what this is all about. I'd like us to say hello by mentioning our name, where we're watching from. So let's say your name was Yetunde now. You can say, hi, Yetunde from Manchester. Okay, so we've got Ajoke from Manchester. Hello, Chizoba from Sweden. Hello. Yetunde from Nuneaton, Warwickshire. Yewande from Calgary. Hello, you're welcome. Modesola from London. You're welcome. Keep it coming. Olufemi from London. Toluwa, wow, so many people. Mide from Grimsby, Toluwa from East Cheshire, Abiodun from Tottenham, London, Iron Reader from Hampshire, Eniola from Coventry, Ebon from Leicester, Catherine from Wolverhampton, Tolu from Leicester. You're welcome. Please keep it coming. Keep it coming. If you're online, please keep it coming. Let us know where you're watching us from. As you know, I'm Mrs. Lafunke. You're watching me from Warwickshire, England. Okay, so you're welcome. You are welcome. Just to let you know more about what Family Corner is about. Family Corner is a segment of Truly Making a Difference ministry. Is an opportunity for us to address family matters, parenting matters, anything that affects parents really. And one thing that I have found out is there's been an influx of child protection cases among the African and Caribbean families and children into children's services, which is popularly known as this. People still tend to use the old terminology, social services. So I think for the purpose of the common language, I'll be using social services. So we've been receiving an influx of cases that some of the African and Caribbean children are being removed from their parents, and there's some consequences. And I initially spoke to my husband about who we co-founded Truly Making a Difference in 2012. I spoke to him about it, that we need to do something about it. And he gave the go ahead to say, why not? We need to make it different. We need to be addressing family matters. And I said, okay, it would be lovely to have a conference about it. And I needed the right professional to co-work with. And I decided to ask Michelle Obo, who is known as Omon as well. You're going to find out more about her in a bit. Hello, we've got Bomu here. Hello, Bomu from Essex. Hello. Okay, hold on. Okay, so about me, for you just to know more about me, I am Funke Ogunoiki. I'm married to Dr. Adibola Ogunoiki. We're blessed with two children, a daughter and a girl. I initially qualified as an early childhood educator. I qualified at a university in Birmingham City University. But when I was there, it was actually called University Central England. At the time of graduating, they changed the name to Birmingham City University. And I initially wanted to be a primary school teacher, actually, because my mom retired as a primary school teacher. So I'd always had interest in working with children from the age of 14. I've been working in the children's department of my church. And yes, and then I changed my mind because science is not an area that I would consider as a strength. And I said, I'm not going to do children any favor in primary school teaching them science, because as you know, you have to teach all the subjects. So anyway, I changed my mind by the time I was in like second year of my undergrad. I said, I need to do social work. I really want to make a difference in people's life, children's life. So I graduated then. I studied masters in social work. And then I've been practicing since 2011 in social work. September, I started practicing. Prior to that, I was obviously working at nursery, different nursery in Birmingham. I studied a master's in social work at Keele University. So in terms of my areas of expertise, I've been working in child protection. I started my career in Sandwell. Sandwell is in Black Country in West Midlands. And then I worked in Kent actually. Then I left Sandwell Council. I worked in fostering. And I worked in fostering. I did a bit of adoption. And then I moved to Kent. I said, okay, let me go down south. I worked in Kent in their Kent County Council. I worked in their child protection team. And after that, I didn't stay too long. I did about 10 months. Sorry about that. I worked there for about 10 months. And then I moved back to Birmingham. And then I worked in Birmingham Children's Services, Birmingham City Council. Yes, I worked in Birmingham. After working in Birmingham for probably about 1 year, I was quite flexible with my career. Social work is a career that you can switch role like anyhow. Anyway, after working in Birmingham, I then decided to work for Coventry City Council. I worked there. And then after Coventry, I started working for Warwickshire. So I'm currently working in Warwickshire as an advanced social worker. I oversee child protection cases, various schools in the east of Warwickshire. They liaise with me to seek safeguarding advice. And I oversee some child protection cases as well. I chair some meetings, etc. I offer consultation. That's it really about me. So tonight, in terms of the agenda, once again, welcome. You're welcome. And we hope that you're going to gain at least something. We would like to be knowing what you're gaining, okay? And you're going to find out about Michelle, my guest for tonight, okay? In terms of the agenda, we have 4 segments for tonight. We're going to be talking about physical chastisement, okay? We're going to be talking about physical chastisement in the UK in terms of what the law says. We're also going to be talking about physical chastisement in Canada, what the law says. We're going to be talking about the signs and also the implications on children, other strategies that we need to consider. We're also going to be talking about neglect. Neglect is a big subject, I must let you know. So our focus tonight, the neglect is going to be about leaving our children alone at home. What does the law say? Is there actually any law around leaving our children alone at home? What do we need to be aware of in terms of the safety? Okay, and then we're going to be talking about emotional abuse, okay? At the end of each segment, everyone will have the opportunity to ask specific questions and also to contribute. We'll be happy to answer your question. And as you're learning, please use the chat section. As you're learning, please use the chat section to be writing what you're learning. Anything that is new to you, please feel free to use the chat section for that. And also, I believe that we have some social workers and other health and social care that are online. So we'll be happy for you to support us with answering questions using the chat section. I know some of us may even be more experienced than me, or you may have had a similar case or particular case in relation to the questions, okay? So once again, you are welcome. You're gonna find out more about Michelle in a bit. Michelle will be talking about the physical chastisement of Canada and also emotional abuse, but she's also going to be contributing to some of the bits that I'm going to be talking about. Okay, so I'm going to start. I'm going to be talking about the physical chastisement of the UK. I mean, when it comes to parenting, we all know we all grew up differently, didn't we? Okay, and parenting has changed. I must let you know when it comes to the methods, the approaches that we use in parenting. Sometimes some of the methods that we were brought up, they're still applicable. Some of them, the government frown upon them. Okay, so it's not like all the methods that some of us, our parents used to bring us up, like they are completely wrong. No, okay. Some of the approaches, they are still welcome. So when it comes to physical chastisement comes under physical abuse, and physical abuse comes under a title called abuse. Okay, physical chastisement comes under physical abuse, and physical abuse comes under the umbrella title abuse. Let's have some interaction going. What do you think abuse is? What is abuse? Please leave a comment. Let me read from you. What do you think abuse is? If physical chastisement is under physical abuse and physical abuse is under abuse, when you hear the word abuse, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? Please, let's use what comes to your mind? Can we have some? Are you all able to use the chart? When you hear the word abuse, what comes to your mind?
Or people, if they don't want to chat, they can unmute themselves and talk.
I think we'd have to unmute them. Okay, people able to use the chat, please? Okay, so abuse, Bomo said abuse is about harm, violence against someone. Sharon said abuse is about wrongdoing. And Yola said abuse is about maybe going extreme. Ayodeji said abuse is about the improper use of something. Anybody else, what do you think abuse is? Inflicting pain on someone. Okay, okay. Well done, fantastic contribution from there. Abuse. So let's hold that thought in terms of what you've said. When it comes to the law, okay, we're going to find out more now. Abuse is a form of maltreatment of a child. So you are right when you say that when somebody inflicts like a pain on a child, okay, or on someone, okay? So abuse is a form of maltreatment of a child. Somebody may abuse a child by inflicting harm or by failing to act to prevent harm. So when we're talking about abuse, abuse is when you inflict harm or failing to prevent harm, okay? So there are two ways, inflicting it or failing, not stopping it happening, okay? And when it comes to even the word harm, that actually has a definition in law, which I'm going to talk to, okay? I will not paraphrase it, okay? So that we can know exactly what the law says, okay? So abuse is a form of maltreatment of a child. Somebody may abuse a child by inflicting harm or by failing to act to prevent harm. And also, when it comes to harm, what does the term harm mean? The law, I will quote the law for you to know. Section 31 of the Children Act 1989. Every social worker, Children Act 89 is our Bible, is our bread and butter. Section 31, I must say, 31 of the Children Act introduced the term significant harm, okay? That's where the word harm came from. And we use it in child protection work. It tells us that harm includes ill treatment or impairment of health and development, okay? So abuse is when you inflict harm or you fail to prevent harm from happening to a child. And this comes under Section 31 of the Children Act 1989. And harm is when is like an ill treatment or impairment of health and development of a child. And when it comes to harm abuse, children may be abused in a family or in a school or in a community setting. Children can be abused by a stranger. Children can be abused by family members, family friends, relatives. Children can be abused by church leaders, religious leaders. Really, children can be abused by anybody, okay? I'm not trying to scare you, but I just have to let you know the reality, okay? Children can be abused by anybody. Nobody writes on their forehead to say, I'm an abuser, okay? Or to say, I'm not an abuser. So children can be abused by anybody. And then when it comes to different types of abuse, there are different types of abuse. We've got the physical abuse, we've got the emotional abuse, we've got sexual abuse, we've also got neglect, okay? So tonight we're going to be talking about physical abuse, emotional abuse, and also neglect, okay? I'm going to start with the physical abuse, okay? So obviously before I start, I want to have an idea of your understanding. What do you think? Naomi is saying that she can't hear anything. Are you able to check your sound to see that everything is okay, Naomi? Because I am speaking, I'm not on mute. So when it comes to sound is fine, yeah. Tammy says sound is fine. If your sound is not fine, please try to mute yourself or maybe unmute yourself, okay? When it comes to physical abuse, what do you think it means, physical abuse? Are we able, Naomi, you're, okay. When it comes to physical abuse, what do we think it means? Chizoba say inflicting harm on the body, pain, okay. Good contribution, can we keep it coming? Pain, inflicting harm on the body. Anybody else, one more comment? What do you think physical abuse, what do you think it means? A beating, using a tool to inflict harm. Mrs. Fumi Adeyemi says it may also include inappropriate sanctions or punishment and rough handling. Eniola Adebayo said using instruments or items to inflict harm. Sharon said physical damage. Okay, fantastic contribution. Everything your boss said, they are correct. I cannot say what you said. And also some of your comments actually come within the law as well, which I'm going to let you know now. So when it comes to physical abuse includes physical punishment, or sometimes we call it physical chastisement. It also means hitting a child, using an object to hit a child. This could be a belt, this could be a cane, this could be a phone charger, this could be anything. It could be a spoon, using something to hit a child, okay? And also physical abuse is also slapping a child. Physical abuse is also shaking a child, throwing a child, poisoning a child. And this one, some of you may find it surprising, but trust me, we have had cases like these. Physical abuse also mean a human being biting a child. Physical abuse also mean drowning a child, burning a child, suffocating a child. I've said about the biting, or causing physical harm to a child. So anything that will cause a form of a physical harm to a child, it is physical harm. Did any of it surprise you at all? Well, everything that I've said about physical harm, were you surprised by any of it at all? If you were, please use the chat. Yeah, what biting? Yeah, I will. People do bite. I've a case. There was a case that a younger child was biting the older child, and the only way the mom could deal with it was to bite their siblings that beat the younger sibling, to say, "Oh, I will bite you." So that is a form of physical abuse. But they Solo Jumi said she wasn't surprised. She said also, she's over said she was surprised about drowning, suffocating, burning. Who will bite a child? The adults will bite the child. Things like this, I'm afraid they do happen. Okay, so that's what physical abuse is all about. And also another one that I didn't let you know, that do you know the physical abuse may also be caused when a parent or carer fabricate the symptoms of inducing an illness of a child. We call that fabricated illness. So sometimes physical abuse could mean a parent coming up with an illness for a child, saying this child has got this particular illness, or I think this child has got this condition, or and they keep coming up with symptoms, deliberately, not because they are anxious, deliberately coming up with symptoms. We call that fabricated illness. This comes under, oh, I don't know that the meaning of that word, Olufemi. Murchison by proxy syndrome. Is that what it's called in medicine? Okay, thank you for that. If that I don't know how to pronounce that, I hope I tried. Yeah, Mrs. Fumi said adults bite children. An incident in my school where a child, but I'm on my mom, but the child bite. Let's keep following the child section just to gain more knowledge, because we have some professionals in the house. Okay, so what signs should we look out for when a child has been physically abused? Okay, bruising in a child who is not independently mobile. Okay, yes, little ones, toddlers under 2, they do tend to have bruise. But if a health, like a doctor who is trained in this, is examining a child, they would know whether the bruises are inappropriate, or whether the location of the bruises are cluttered, that they are in clusters in the wrong places. So bruising in a child who is not independently mobile, multiple bruises also, or bruises in clusters, bruises of a similar shape and size, and also bruises in the eyes, in the ears, in the buttock. We have places that we look to know that if a child has been physically abused. Bruises on the neck, and obviously when you bite a child, a human bite, you can't hide that. You will clearly see the mark. And also scars in unusual places, scars that are multiple. So yeah, yes, those are the signs. I've probably not covered all the signs that has been in terms of physical abuse. Now we're gonna be, obviously we're still gonna talk about what the law says in terms of physical chastisement, physical abuse. But before we come to that, you've heard about the physical abuse: slapping a child, shaking a child, hitting a child, using an object to hit a child, poisoning a child, burning a child. What do you think the impact are? What do you think the impact will be on a child? Please, yes, can we have some chat going on? What do you think? Cigarette burns, that's a good, obviously it's not a good one, but that's a fantastic comment. Yeah, that is a physical abuse. How about using that one? Yeah, remember Mark as well? Is it an abuse? We're going to be answering questions too, but if we have some social workers in the house, please be answering, or whatever you know from your experience. Is it a, please answer people in the comment section. Remember, after this segment, we will answer questions. Yesterday, Adefila said, the impact of the physical abuse could lead to a child having low morale, okay? And also Natasha, Natasha is an experienced social worker. She's in the house. I'm sure she will be commenting as well. Natasha said multiple A&E visits. So a child has been physically abused, they're gonna be going to like A&E constantly. And trust me, the A&E nurses, health and social care professionals, they will keep an eye on that. In terms of the impact, Sharon said panic attacks. Kathy said constant fear. Sharon said panic attacks. Kathy said causes social withdrawal. Bomu said trauma, constant emotional distress. Let me see more. How do you differentiate between fabrication and if they genuinely think something is wrong with a child? People will be answering your comment, all your question, but I know professionals in the house will also be answering your question in the chat section. And at the end of my segment, I will answer too. Children who face physical abuse usually turn out to be very aggressive. Some withdraw and keep to themselves. Low self-esteem, Chineye say depression. Thank you, Mrs. Fumi. Adeyemi, Tolu, so the child will have confidence issues. Sharon said affect academic milestone. Ajoke said moody. Yetunde said challenging behavior. Tanisha said poor educational achievement, poor social skill under development. Keep it coming. Wow, you guys are fantastic. You've already answered all my comment here. Okay, when it comes to the impact, what have I've written so much here, but you guys have covered a lot already. Michelle, do you have anything to add when it comes to the impact? Do you want to comment at all?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of impacts, hello, I'm Michelle, also known as Omo Obo, by the way. So anyway, we'll talk about me in detail when I get to my section. But to add to what Funke is saying, in terms of impact, children who, suffer from physical abuse, they often suffer long-term health problems. They can experience mental health issues, such as depression, anxiety. They can also experience, pain, like, lack of confidence, not being able to focus. As someone also mentioned before, it can impact on their, educational achievement. Sometimes, parents may wonder why children are not, doing well at school, and maybe if they've been subject to abuse, that can make them to feel unease and also on edge, and lack concentration, being able to concentrate at school. So these are some of the things that the impact of abuse, physical abuse, has on children.
You're right. Thank you, Michelle. And I read a comment there that says that aggression. Yes, physical abuse, the impact could be increased aggression, not just on the child. It could lead to that child also fighting their siblings in an aggressive way, fighting their siblings, fighting their friends, and using violence to seek attention. Sometimes when a child is physically aggressive towards their siblings or towards their friend, some parents are thinking, oh, they need to start praying, they need to start quoting the Bible. But we need to start looking, are there things in that child's surrounding? Are we exhibiting some behaviors that is leading that child to be violent? We need to be looking at the triggers. We need to be examining ourselves, okay? And also, what else? It could also lead to obviously the child being violent. And also it tells that child that violence is okay. It tells that child that it is okay to use force to get your own way. It is okay to use force when an adult is angry. It is okay to use force when we are annoyed. It is okay to use force when we're not happy with somebody's behavior. That is what it's telling a child, even a teenager. So whenever we're using force, we're using hitting, whenever we're using whatever form of physical abuse that we've said, it is reinforcing to the child that violence is okay. That's what he's telling a child. And that's when that child grows up, they normalize it as whether it is okay to do this. After all, my mom or dad, my auntie, my grandma did this. Ruth Baker said repeated offender. Okay, yes, come on. I'm seeing some professionals commenting there. Well done. We appreciate you. And also it could lead to that child, that young person resenting their parents, resenting their siblings, okay? Okay, so what does the UK law say about the use of physical chastisement? Okay, I need to say something. I know some of us do not agree with the law, okay, when it comes to physical chastisement. I must let you know, whether we agree or not, the law is there. The law is there. Whether we agree with the law or not, the law is there. Nobody's going to be excused to say, well, you don't agree, you're excused. The law is there. And we are here on the Family Corner of Truly Making a Difference to educate, because we want to reduce the influx of cases, of African Caribbean cases being referred into children's services, into social services. We want to make a difference, okay? And that's why we're holding this conference. That's why we've got some professionals in there answering questions. Any question you have, please feel free. I know Tanisha is there, and any other social workers, please be answering. Please be answering, okay? Thank you. And I know we've got some mental health professionals in the house as well. Okay, so when it comes to UK law, I must let you know, when it comes to Scotland, it is illegal. It is illegal to smack a child, okay? In Scotland, it has been banned to smack a child. That is Scotland, okay? And when it comes to the UK, all forms of physical punishment of children are against the law in Scotland, okay? Children have the same legal protection from assault as adults in Scotland. That is Scotland. Now let's move on to England, okay? Because I know some of us are in England, okay? Let's move on to England. When it comes to England, I'll let you know there's a bit of a gray area when it comes to the law, okay, in England. While the law is saying that it is not illegal for a parent to smack a child, and as long as it is done in like it is reasonable punishment, the law does not recommend you to be smacking, okay? So while the law is saying that reasonable punishment is allowed, but the law is saying, the law is not really recommending you to smack, and you're going to find out why now. So who decide whether okay, the law is saying a reasonable chastisement, a reasonable punishment is okay, okay? As a form of a defense. You can find this in section 58 of the Children Act 2004. Okay, but whether a smack amounts to reasonable punishment, this will depend on the circumstances of each case. So it's not a blanket rule to say you're allowed to smack a child. It depends on the circumstances of each case, will be assessed by a social worker and the police. And they're going to take into consideration factors like the age of the child and the nature of the smack, okay? However, physical punishment will be considered unreasonable. You know, we said that reasonable physical chastisement is acceptable. Physical punishment will be considered unreasonable if it leaves a mark on the child, or if the child was hit with an equipment such as a cane, a belt, a phone charger, okay? Are we getting it? So when it comes to sort of the consequences, so let's say a child reported at schools. Most time children, they report when they've been emotionally affected, or sometimes when they are just sad about the incident, they inform school. They have a duty to speak to that child about it further, and they have a duty to notify children's services. Some schools will look into it, speak to a parent, and we have some schools, they don't even bother to speak to the parent. They will make a judgment to say they have to refer this to social services straight away. Okay, so when it comes to the criminal offenses, so let's say the police and children's services assess this and they're like, okay, this is an unreasonable sort of physical punishment. Remember, you're not going to be the one that is going to conclude that is unreasonable. It's the police and children's services. So let's say they made a decision that the incident was an unreasonable decision. There's a place of a criminal matter there. And when it comes to the criminal offenses, a parent can be charged or could be charged with a criminal offense if they harm their child under the following offenses. And offense under section 18 and 20 of the Offenses Against the Person Act. And this act has existed since 1861. And this is when there's a wound, or when there's a wound to a child, or you've inflicted a form of a violence to a child, okay? And this is usually called, they call it ABH, okay? Causing actual bodily harm. And also, it's also an offense under the section 47, okay, of the same Offense Act, okay? And also, it can also be called a common assault when you inflict a violence on somebody, okay? And there's also another offense called cruelty to a child under 16. So when you exhibit any behavior that is cruelty, a physical sort of cruelty to a child under 16, it is an offense under Section 1 of the Children and Young Persons Act 1933. Some of this information may be new to some of you, and that's why we're educating you tonight. The police and social workers, they have discretion to deal with cases as they consider appropriate, okay? So I need you to know that. Parents, you have the right to make choices about reasonable punishment, but there's a fine line between physical punishment in terms of reasonable physical punishment in the law, and assault, which is a criminal offense. Do we get it? So a smack might be considered to be reasonable chastisement if you're not using sort of force, and also depend on what led to you using it. Do you get what led you to you using that approach? So the circumstance will be examined, okay? And the police and social worker, they will come up with a recommendation. Another sort of the criminal matter is, if that person was found guilty in the criminal matter, there is a label that goes with that, PPRC, meaning person who poses a risk to children. Okay, and the probation officer and social worker will make an assessment when it comes to that person that's received the PPRC, person poses risk to children, the sort of contact they can have with children. We will write an assessment to make a recommendation. Can you see that the law is quite big when it comes to reasonable chastisement? As parents, as caregivers, we have to be very careful. Okay, we've talked about the impact, but you don't want to have criminal records because you're not having the right knowledge. And then, yes, I'm seeing some question there. Somebody said they've come up. Yes, I'm seeing question there. Okay. And there's some, okay, let me see if I've got any more points to say before I come into question and answer, okay? So I've talked about the PPRC, I've talked about the common assault, I've talked about the criminal case. So let's say a child reported at school that they were physically chastised. The school will, let's say they notified us, then the police and I we will make a decision whether we will speak, we do some things in the background to say, okay, we need this is looking like there might be a bit of a criminal matter here because of the physical chastisement. The police and the social worker and experienced social worker will go out to assess the situation. If the police officer and the social worker, they deem that child to be at risk without fully assessing the situation, they will remove that child for at least 3 days, 72 hours, to place with a family friend while they investigate. There's an order they can use. It's called PPO, Police Protection Order. They will remove that child while we're investigating, while we're assessing. We have some terminologies that we use. The conclusion of the matter could be no further action because we find it reasonable. Or the conclusion could be, okay, they need to go the criminal part. This child needs to be made subject to a child protection or a child in need. So it's quite a long process. Or we close the case. So, and another thing I need to let you know, it is against the law for teachers, nursery workers, church teachers, religious teachers, anyone that is working with children, whether in a voluntary capacity, any sort of working with children, whether it's paid, it is against the law for you to smack another person's child. So whether you're looking after somebody else's child, your nieces, your goddaughter, godchildren, your family, it is against the law for you to smack somebody else's child. I need to let you know. Okay, so before we move on to question and answer, I'd like us to talk about, okay, I think we might as well move on to question and answer and then contribution before we talk about alternative ways to correct children if we're not meant to be using physical. But I don't think we should do that. We can probably do that after Michelle has had our session. Okay, question and answer. Question, let me go, let me scroll. Because I know some of them have been coming. Please, if I miss your question, please feel free to put them again. I'm going to the questions now. Okay, let's see. Okay. How about using our hand? Is it an abuse? Okay, remember I said, that's a question there. in terms of, is he an abuse? Okay, before I answer, I would like, is Natasha able to, is Tanisha able to speak? Are we able to unmute Tanisha? Let me see. Is using your hand. Let me unmute Tanisha. Tanisha is an experienced social worker. We've worked in Coventry together. And I know she previously worked in Birmingham with Michelle. I don't think I was in Birmingham then. Okay, so I'm gonna unmute. Are we able to unmute Tanisha to answer that question?
Yeah. Hi both.
Hiya.
Hello.
Can we see Tanisha? I can't see you.
Yeah, hold on.
Okay, go on then.
Go.
Hi, Tanisha. Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure. No problem.
So do you think it's an abuse when parents use their hand to probably slap a child or hit a child? Have you dealt with any cases like that?
Yeah, we do. But then we also look at the history of it. Is it something that's happening on a regular basis? The severity of it, the impact of it. So you look at it holistically as well. You look at the whole picture, because there are sometimes cases where a child has been hit and shared that at school. And then we go out on an initial visit, we speak to the child alone, and then we gather evidence from the teacher as well. How's that child presented at school? Again, to look at the impact, so you look at the whole impact. But if it's an incident that's never come to our attention before, ours as in the local authority, and the child isn't known, and it can be classed as a one-off or an isolated situation, but we can kind of add some intervention in there. So we would probably look at early help. So we get like support workers that might do short pieces of work with the parents about other methods to use rather than physical chastisement. So to try and kind of teach them out of using that way to discipline their children. And that can be a short piece of work. Obviously every case is different, but then ultimately we look at, okay, this was wrong. This is how you move on in the future. We'll show you how to do it, and then we'll kind of leave you to it. So that's the most like straightforward and easy case in regards to physical chastisement. But then you can move to the other ones where you do find it's a regular occurrence. You do find that it's impacts on their education. Then it spills into the neglect, so their appearance. And then when you're assessing, you're finding that, you know, there's been other instances they're open to us, or they've been open to us for months because of that issue, or that issue has been one of many issues. So then that can spill into section 47 of the Children's Act 1989, where you look at an in-depth assessment, you work with police, depending on what the incident is that we've come across. It's decided whether the child needs to temporarily be removed from the home so we can work with parents, or is the perpetrator, does that perpetrator need to leave the home? Because it's not always the mom, it may be the dad or vice versa. So it is quite complex, and you really have to break it down and look at the different variations and the different situations and different cases. And then sometimes what we find is culturally as well, that can be a big impact. So with some families, it's okay from where, you know, from their birth countries or where they live, but then obviously when they come to the UK, the laws are a lot different. So you can come across that a lot as well. So it's quite complex.
Yeah,
Not straightforward.
I mean, from what Tanisha is saying, is each case by case. And if it was a one-off incident, we look at the impact. One-off incident, we tend to close it, like you said, and we'll probably do a short intervention about alternative ways of managing children's behavior. And I remember, obviously, we have to maintain confidentiality. I'm not going to mention the local authority that I have this case. I remember I've once had the case whereby it was a one-off incident. The mom, just out of natural instinct, she slapped the child because the child was hitting his baby brother. So out of a natural instinct as a mom, she just went boom. And it did leave a mark. It did leave a mark. So when you think about that in black and white, that wasn't a reasonable chastisement. However, when we listen to the context, this was a mom with a baby, and then she was upstairs trying to sort something very quickly out for the baby. And she just heard a scream and natural reaction, boom. And then we concluded that, okay, given the context of the situation, we were going to give a short intervention. We didn't go the criminal matter. However, that was us. I know the social worker with police may make another recommendation, you know. You know, Tanisha.
Yeah.
So yeah, it all varies. We've got another question. How do you differentiate between fabrication and if they genuinely think that is what is wrong with a child? I think when it comes to fabricated illness, we have to get the medical involved. The medical team.
You have to rely on a lot of medical evidence about that. You know, the child has to be seen by probably a consultant, a doctor. If it gets that far as well, we then have to gain consent to then access health records of the parents as well. Also, because sometimes it could be happening for years with the mom as well, or the dad. Yes. Presenting at hospital. So you've got to build a story. You've got to build your evidence.
Yes, because I know as parents, thank you, Tanisha. I know as parents, sometimes when we notice sort of something wrong with a child, we tend to Google it. That's a bit different. This one is a bit extreme. They come up with, and they want the doctor, the consultant to believe them. Obviously, medical doctors are training their job. So consultant would be the one to assess this. I know it's not clear cut, but they do assess it before they can conclude that these parents were fabricating the illness. A story has to be, there has to be a holistic assessment. Do we have any other question? Let me keep scrolling. What then is reasonable punishment? Michelle, do you want to comment? I've got about 3 minutes left on my session. Do you want to say something? What then is reasonable chastisement? That's why I said it's a very gray area when it comes to reason, because you're not going to be the one to decide what is reasonable. If it gets to a school or children's services, like Tanisha was saying, we will look, is it a one-off incident? And okay, what was the impact on the child? It could actually have impacted that child, that moment, but is it going to be an ongoing impact as well? And when the parents, are they being remorseful? Are they saying, oh, I don't really care. I don't believe in the law. I'm going to do what I've got to do. Isn't it? Tanisha?
Yeah. It's whether you're able to, you know, a different thought process, a different way to manage challenging behavior. But it's sometimes it's more challenging if it's culturally accepted. So that's where you can find the challenge there. But again, you know, like the one that you just said, it was a circumstance with that, and you know, mum probably could have been worked with to change that reaction, but that's not always the case for some of the families.
Yes, I know, right? So Modestula asked a question: what is the position of the law when it comes to kneeling, peeping, squatting? Okay, yeah, I know in some African culture, they can ask a child to stand up and raise their leg for about 5 minutes. I think, like we say, it's still about the impact. The social worker would definitely advise you not to use their method.
Yeah, that was, so we're talking about back, obviously, in the UK, that would be totally not reasonable in any case, and that would be taken quite seriously.
So no, children's services will never advise you to do that. I must let you know. No. If a child raises that at school, it's going to be seen as a concern. It's not going to be dismissed.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay, somebody asking, are you saying asking a child to close their eyes and raise their hand is wrong? Yes, it's not recommended. Children's social workers would not recommend you to ask a child to stand up, raise their hand. I have seen cases like that a child reported that mom and dad asked them to raise their hand. Alternative approaches, I mean, like we're saying, some parents have come from Africa or Caribbean. That's all they know when it comes to correcting children. It's now time to be using other approaches when it comes to correcting children, which Michelle is going to be talking about in a bit. Okay. Yeah, even though the law is not saying don't smack a child, so no social worker will ask you to smack your child. Police would not recommend you to smack your child because the law is very gray when it comes to reasonable chastisement. Okay.
I can see someone's put something about sitting on the stairs. I can't see the comments.
Sitting on the stairs. Oh, okay.
That would be classed as like timeouts. That would be classed as you know, a strategy to help minimize or to control a situation. So timeout on the top of the stairs, in their bedroom, or in the other living room, anything like that, that would be deemed as that's fine. That's you managing a situation, calming it down, giving a bit of time, rather than resulting to physical chastisement.
All right. Thank you, Tanisha. I'm going to
No
move on
problem.
to, thank you. I'm
Okay,
going to
thank
move,
you.
yeah, thank you. I'm going to move on to Michelle now. Michelle is going to be talking about alternative methods in terms of correcting our children, because social workers also have to make recommendations to parents in terms of alternative methods. And also Michelle is going to be talking about physical chastisement, what the law says in Canada, because I know we have some Canadians online. Okay, I'm just going to read Michelle's biography very quickly. Michelle is also known as Aman. Aman Abba was born and raised in UK. She was born in London and she lived in London for 30 years. She's the third of 4 children. She has 2 elder brothers and 1 younger sister. Michelle relocated to Canada, Calgary in 2018. She has always had a passion to live outside of the UK. So she visited Canada in 2017. She went on holiday and she liked it and decided to relocate to Canada. Michelle has an undergraduate, a bachelor degree in sociology and master's in social work, which she completed her studies in UK. Prior to relocating to Canada, Michelle worked for 6 years as a senior social worker in child protection teams and multi-agency safeguarding help in various local authorities. She worked in London, Barking and Dagenham. She also worked in Birmingham and she also worked in Sandwell. Michelle's work is involved working with children and families across different ethnicity, different religions, working with children and family from various cultural backgrounds. Michelle has worked with families around domestic abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Michelle takes pride in supporting children who are less privileged, and she's involved in charity work to support this cause, especially supporting families in third world countries with basic means of survival. Michelle believes that all children have a right to have the basic necessity in life in order to promote their health and development to be successful in life. Please, can we say hello to Michelle in the comment section? Hello, Michelle, you're welcome. Michelle is going to talk about various ways that we can correct our children's behavior and also talk about physical chastisement, what the law says in Canada. I'm really keen to hear about Canada. Okay, Michelle, am I going to unmute you?
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. It's a privilege to be here. I currently work in Canada as a social worker with children's services. So some of the cases also, and some of the laws between Canada and the UK, they are similar in terms of the approach around, you know, safeguarding children and ensuring that children's, you know, safety is paramount whilst at home. So in terms of physical chastisement, which is also known in Canada, can be referred to as physical punishment. It basically refers to any pain or discomfort, any physical force that is used by another person, you know, to cause pain or discomfort to a child. So be it from, you know, from a parent, from a family member, from an outsider, that is what is considered to be physical punishment. And in terms of, I will just read from what the actual law, we used what is called the Child, Family, Youth Enhancement Act. This is the legal act, the legal law that guides social workers in their practice with child law in Canada. So according to Section 3, it says a child is physically injured if there's substantial and observable injury to any part of the child's body as a result of the non-accidental application of force or an agent to the child's body that is evidenced by a laceration, a contusion, an abrasion, a scar, a fracture, or other bone injury, a dislocation, a sprain, hemorrhaging, the rupture of a viscus, a burn, a scald, frostbite, the loss of alternation of consciousness, or the physiological functioning or loss of hair or teeth. So that's a very big definition in terms of, you know, what is considered to be physical abuse, you know, amongst the Canada law. So in terms of what Funke had said, you know, as physical chastisement is a very gray area. You can't say it is good and you can't say it is bad. As I said, it's a very gray area. Many people from different backgrounds, how they were raised by their parents, you know, they now follow the same method and believe that it's right to raise their child. You know, in terms of physical, you know, chastisement, you know, as mentioned, you know, it has to be done. We don't recommend that it should be done because you can never say if it is reasonable enough or not. Even, for example, hitting a child, slapping a child on their face, you might think that is fine, but also it can, you know, some children, they develop bruises easily. Just a little hit can cause a child to have a bruise. You may not intentionally planned for the child to have such a bruise, but because of the action and sometimes also in the moment, you know, that occurs and then that child has that bruise. So if they go to school and school asks what happened, they say, oh, mum hit me because, you know, I wasn't doing something right. That would be considered as physical abuse. So we need to be very mindful of how you know, we discipline children when it comes to physical chastisement. In terms of also some things in, you know, in Canada, it also states that, you know, children below the age of 2 years old and children above 12 years old should not, physical chastisement is illegal to be used against such an age group. That is actually according to the Child and Family Enhancement Act too. So these are some of the things that we have to you know, bear in mind. And also, like, for example, hitting a child out of anger, you know, if maybe, for example, you're not in a good mood as a parent, and then, you know, out of anger, you now go and hit your child, you know, that is considered to be physical abuse. That does no longer consider to be, you know, physical punishment, because the purpose of the physical punishment is to correct a behavior which occurs at the time. So that is, and as I said, it has to be within reasonable doubt. In terms of the impact of physical abuse on children, as mentioned before, there are several impacts that it can have. You know, it can cause long-term developmental issues on children. It can impact on their health, you know, psychological functioning, whereby, you know, they can experience some mental health like depression, anxiety, you know, they can lose concentration, focus. These are some of the things that it can impact on them. And also as well, they can end up, you know, it's also about learned behavior as well. Such children, when they can end up growing up, when becoming adults, also parenting, as it, you know, it becomes a pattern of behavior. So that is some of the things that we need to be wary on the impact, you know, on the child. You know, how would this child feel? You know, also put yourself in the situation of the child. You know, you must have grown up maybe having experienced suffering trauma because you were hit as a child. So how would that be for your own child to be experiencing that? So those are some of the things that we need to, as parents, you need to look on when you're taking approaches. You know, there are other methods that we can use as opposed to physical chastisement. As Tanisha mentioned, you know, being on timeout, you know, if a child, you know, does something that, you know, they shouldn't be doing, or, you know, you can put them on timeout, you know, stop what they're doing, you know, say that they're going to be on timeout for this amount of time, you know, because this is what they did. You know, it might be difficult in the beginning. You might say, oh, that's just, you know, sure, it might be difficult, but over time, the children learn, they will pick it up and it will become a routine that they know if they do this behavior, they're going to be sent on timeout. So they will try not to do that behavior so they're not sent on timeout. So that is one of good approaches. Also in terms of approaches with teenagers, taking away their privileges, being able to play on video games, having access to their phone, you can remove all of those stuff. And those are very good measures that will make the child to be able to know, what they should do, and also, a method to correct their behavior, to stop them from doing the things that they should not be doing, or etc. So also as well, another thing could be maybe getting children to, as a method of discipline, is to engage in some household chores. They might not like to wash plates, but because they've done this action, they will have to go and, do the dishes for the day, so that will also help with them, to learn that, this is not right, and to correct them in that respect. So I'm going to move on to emotional. Has anyone got any questions just before I move on to emotional abuse? You can write it in the chat and we can have a discussion.
Thank you, Michelle. Before you move on to the emotional abuse, I think we have another social worker in the house, Charlene. Do we have another? Is Charlene there?
Yeah.
Are we able to unmute her if she's got any contributions so far? Because it's good to listen to child protection specialist. Hi, Charlene. Thank you for joining. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, Charlene.
Hello.
Thank you for joining. From what you've heard so far, what have we not said? What would you like to contribute?
To be honest, I think we've pretty much sort of covered most of it. The clear differences, even in respect of what Michelle has said, is between the UK and Canada, that obviously, physical chastisement in any shape or form isn't acceptable for any child. And it's about understanding, I guess, the differences, but knowing that it's not acceptable and it can cause ongoing emotional harm for a child.
Thank you, Charlene. We've got a question there which we're going to answer. I must let you know, as parents, even social workers, that we're parents, we've all made mistakes when it comes to parenting, okay? So we don't want you to start beating yourself to say, oh no, I did this yesterday. Oh no, I did this 2 months ago. It's about us learning, okay? And that's why we have this conference, so that we can all learn, okay? Nobody's saying anyone has not made any mistake. We've all made mistakes. It's just that we all make different mistakes when it comes to parenting. And that's why we're here to learn. There's a question there that say, what are other options for teenagers after lots of conversation? I believe Michelle covered that. What are the other options when it comes to Charlene, do you have any comment in terms of options that we can be using to correct teenagers' behavior? Because we know in social work, teenagers tend to be where parents tend to have a number of difficulties.
Yeah, I think it's about, with teenagers, often taking away perhaps devices, iPads, mobile phones. Don't get me wrong, I do think it's more difficult if you're trying to manage the behaviour of teenagers, particularly if they've grown up with limited or no boundaries. It's difficult at 15 to come in and say, right, you're not going to do this, if a child's been doing that sort of all of their life, really. It's better to implement the boundaries from when, a child is younger, and at least then, they'll grow up with those boundaries and I guess sort of understanding right from wrong.
Yes, I completely agree, completely. And also with teenagers, sometimes taking up the Wi-Fi. I've had cases that the parent will literally turn off the Wi-Fi in the house, or they will literally they will literally collect the phone. If I think we should also get people, we've got 55 people online, whatever method they're using to correct your child, please feel free to leave in the comment section. Another thing I want to encourage African and Caribbean parents to take on board is the language that we use. Sometimes parents are perhaps maybe giving a child a spank a little, but they use the word, I will beat you. They're not actually beating the child, but they are using the wrong language to describe what they've done. And when somebody's hearing beating, they're thinking of something else. Do you get what I mean? Okay, Michelle, do you have anything to contribute before I
No,
ask Tanisha when it comes to managing teenagers' behavior? Charlene made a fantastic point. When it comes to teenager, we need to start setting the right boundaries, right disciplining method from children, from 3-year-old, from 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And Michelle made mention of chores. The law is not saying you can't correct your child. You can increase the chores to say, okay, you're gonna be the one, you're gonna be the one doing this, doing that. Of course, it's gonna be reasonable. You're not gonna expect them to be the one maybe cleaning the whole house every single day. Do you get what I mean? So it's still got to be reasonable. Taking the devices, no social worker will tell you that, okay, you must return that iPad to that child. No social worker is going, or no police will say, I'm giving you an iPad or something, okay? Or sometimes some parents ground them to say, you're not going out. Yeah, that's true, Charlene. They will take away iPad, mobile, do not allow them to go out with their friend. Yes, we get this. So I must let you know, the law is not saying you can't correct your child. The law is saying that you need to consider other approaches, because we found out that when physical chastisement has been used, is usually when the parents are angry, when parents are not able to manage their emotions. And also we've got some people from African Caribbean that are practicing Christianity that have misinterpreted the scripture that talks about sparing the rod and spoiling the child. The rod is not necessarily a rod for you to discipline the child. The rod in that context is talking about when a shepherd takes a rod to guide a sheep. The rod is saying that you need to consider different methods in terms of disciplining children. Nobody will tell you not to discipline your child. Children are to be corrected. Okay, does anybody else want to talk about any other options in terms of managing children's behavior? Michelle, you want to say something?
I think you've covered it. Most of it has been covered.
Okay, thank you. Before we obviously move on to the emotional abuse part, Ayodeji wrote a comment. Timeout seemed to seem the only reverend that I reckon. Timeout sometimes doesn't work with older children, I must let you know. So you need to know what works for your child, okay? And also, it's not going to be a permanent measure that you have to constantly be reviewing what you're using, because you may be using a method now, it may not work with your another child, the sibling. So you need to be reviewing your method that you're using to be, and you also need to be working on your emotion, because as parents, sometimes we do get angry. We do naturally maybe shout. That's another one, which we'll come to. Naturally, some parents just want to smack. Naturally, some parents just want to get the belt, because that's what they had heard or witnessed or experienced as a child growing up. Naturally, some parents just want to do something that the law would not support. So what we're saying is, now you have the understanding of the law. Start working on your emotions when it comes to correcting the child, so that you don't, because social workers and police will not say that, well, you have a right to do this. No, nobody will say you were justified to do this, okay? All right, what are the steps if a child is being abusive towards their child, towards their parents? That's a good question, because normally we talk about domestic abuse, violence between parents on parent, partners on partners, but sometimes we don't talk about child to parents. I mean, what are the steps? I would say something. Obviously, we're going to assess the situation, and we will obviously speak to the child. Sometimes the child may have to see a psychologist. The child will have to go to the doctor to do some assessment. And obviously, it depends on what the child is. I'll tell you what, I've not really had a case that the child received a criminal record. I've not had that case, but I've had a case that the child had to I've had a case that the parent requested for that child to leave the house, maybe to go to a relative, while the child receives some behavioral support, maybe while the uncle or the auntie offers some sort of support. Do you get what I mean? Okay. What do you think? What are the steps if a child is being abused? Because some children, especially young people, they can be quite abusive towards their parents, and they can be quite physical as well. Okay, and also you want to understand the triggers as well, because what we've seen is some teenagers, when they get to teenager, it could be due to emotional stress because they're stressed about something. You want to know the triggers, understanding the triggers are important. And also some teenagers, I'm afraid I have to say this, some people they've been introduced to maybe substances. It could be because they started and they're being impacted by it. You need to understand the triggers. You need to understand the trigger, but it's definitely not going to be embraced by social services. Likewise, the police. We would not support that child to be abusing you because it is against the law. Michelle, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, from the chat, Temi Topper, who's a teacher, she said a lot of students of exam age are under school pressures. So that can, you know, result in some behaviors occurring, you know, they're under due stress, you know, and sometimes some children can't handle stress. So in turn, they might end up being, you know, physical or, you know, something. If a child, as I said, if a child's, you know, behavior you're not able to manage, it's always good to try to seek support, you know, seek support from, you know, other friends or, you know, relatives or in the community if you're not able, rather than it escalating where, you know, you might end up reacting where you shouldn't. So it's good when you recognize that, you know, you are struggling with your child's behavior, try to seek support from the beginning, than it escalating.
Family support or something.
Yeah,
Your support network.
Then it escalating to a crisis. That's when it then becomes seen as a different light, even in social workers. You know, it then seems as a light, now we're having to deal with this crisis situation. So
yes. And one thing I can am I on the spotlight? I don't know how to do that. How do I make myself to be on? Am I on the spotlight? If I am, please let me know.
Yes, you are. Once you're speaking,
yeah.
you're on the spotlight.
Oh, okay, thank you. And one thing I want to say is that one thing that is quite common within the African Caribbean culture is when a parent is struggling with their children or their young people, people are not speaking out for support. One thing that we would always recommend is explore your support networks. It is not a shame for you to speak out for somebody to support you. It is not a shame. Every parent, they've struggled with one thing or the other. No parent will say they've never struggled with a particular behavior of a child. So it's good to, rather than for it to get to a state that you can't undo that child's behavior at all, okay? Somebody asked a question, is it considered an abuse to threaten with words like I will beat you without actually doing that? I must let you know that's not a legal thing. However, I have managed a case like this that the mom will be saying that I will beat you, I will smack you. So the child is at school, maybe not doing well in a subject, or maybe not doing well. Oh, no. If my mom hears about this, mom is gonna beat me. And the school teacher's thinking, oh, this is a concern. Do you get, the parents have not actually beaten the child before, but they keep making that statement. I think if you're not actually going to do it, we as a social worker, we would advise you not to be making empty threats that you're not going to be implementing, okay? You have to consider another approach, okay? Okay, all right, we're going to move on to emotional abuse. Do we have any question? Charlene said, be firm in your parenting. I have 2 daughters and I do not even have to raise my voice. I am the mother. If I say no, I mean no. Yes, as a mother, as a father, you have a right to correct your child. No law is against that. You have a right to be firm. No law is but start from young. Catch them from young. Catch them from primary school, from nursery. Keep being consistent, okay? All right. Exactly. Charlene said family support can work, but does not look at how the parent was parented, as this is often the root cause. Correct. Okay, I'm going to move on to Michelle now. Please keep using the chat section to comment, to interact, to share your knowledge. I know Ruth Baker is online. She's a mental health nurse. She works for adolescent mental health service. She can comment from your professional experience, whether you're in another career or from your parenting experiences as well. Please feel free to comment, okay? Or whether you look after other people's children, please feel free. We're not gonna move on to emotional abuse. We're not covering this in depth, okay? We're just gonna do a bit of an overview, which I'm gonna pass over to Michelle now to cover. Michelle, over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, emotional abuse, it ranges, it's a big range. So basically, emotional abuse is when, you know, you make a child repeatedly to feel, you know, worthless, unloved, alone, or scared, you know. So some of the examples can be name calling, You know, it can be like, for example, calling children inappropriate names because you're angry with them, or maybe responding to a behavior that they did. You know, also insulting, threatening violence, as you know, even without calling out, as someone mentioned before. What if you're saying, I'm going to beat, I will hit you, I'll hit you, I'll hit you, but you know you're not going to hit them. But the fact that you're threatening, saying you're going to hit them, that impacts on them emotionally to feel that this is what is going to happen. So that is considered emotional abuse. Another you know, example is also withholding love, you know, support or guidance. You know, if, for example, you know, because maybe a child, you know, has not done something that you don't like, you know, you wouldn't show them the love and affection that you usually will show them. You will withhold that from them, you know. So that's part of emotional abuse. And also domestic violence. This is a very big area in terms of domestic violence, you know, both physical, you know, violent, it doesn't both physical and verbal violence, you know. So children witnessing parents arguing, cursing themselves, you know, swearing at themselves, you know, that's emotional harm. That's impacting on their, you know, that impacts on them psychologically. You know, that can help them, that can make children to end up, you know, believing that this is normal. You know, they can end up being later on becoming perpetrators. I've worked with so many children where they witnessed violence when they were young with parents, and now they are now displaying violence towards people. So, you know, it's around learned behavior. You know, it can also make them, you know, have, you know, feel scared, feel anxious, feel, you know, worried, you know, thinking, you know, they lack confidence. They have, as I said, anger management problems, you know. So there's a very, emotional abuse is a very big thing under the term of abuse, you know. And, you know, for example, domestic abuse between parents is, you know, is not acceptable for children to be exposed to such abuse. I mean, no relationship is perfect. We all know that we have disagreements, but it's being able to manage those agreements between yourself and your spouse or your husband or wife in an appropriate manner, so the children are not exposed to seeing, you know, you maybe name calling or even being verbally or physical abusive towards them. Even an example, like often, you know, we say that, oh, maybe, you know, some people say, oh, children are, you know, they're old, they won't understand, or the child is young, they won't understand if this happens. No, it is not. That's completely wrong. Children pick up everything. Even a baby sleeping in another room and you are having an argument between yourself and your husband, you know, shouting and calling each other names, the child can hear those words, you know, that child, you know, can hear it, and, you know, it can impact on their development. You know, they can, you know, start to feel anxious or worried if they hear noises, you know, they jump, you know. So these are very detrimental to their well-being and health. So it's a good thing that us as parents, that you should be mindful of the words that you use towards your children. You know, it can break them, and or it can also elevate them. So, you know, and far often, you know, as parents growing up, you know, we've experienced, you know, you may have experienced, you know, where your parents spoke negative words against you or told you negative things, you know, and now you feel that's something that you can do, that, oh, if I was able to be raised like that, this child. No, every child is different. You know, it also causes trauma for a child. You know, children, you know, they grow up, you know, think, you know, experiencing trauma, and it's because of the abuse that they suffered, you know. So we have to be very mindful how we speak to our children. No matter how angry we are, we have to be able to use mechanisms to control our anger in that moment. We have to have self-control. You know, I know it can be difficult as a parent. Children are very difficult. They can be very challenging. And in the moment, you just react. But sometimes you just have to take a pause and then react. You know, have self-control to use other methods than, you know, using using wrong words towards them, abusive words towards them, because that is not in their favor, and it resonates with them for a long period of time, you know, ongoing. So they will keep those words, and that's what they would, you know, verbalize. Oh, my mother called me worthless. They might, you know, end up seeing themselves as being worthless. That's what they, you know, so they pick up this. So it's very important to be very mindful of what you talk, what you say to your child in any event. Funke?
Yeah.
Is there anything to add? You want to add to that?
I mean, you said about baby, because sometimes parents forget that babies can hear things, and parents, yeah, we said the arguments do happen in relationships. Parents do argue, but it's about what the argument is about, the language you're using, the child is hearing. Even if there's another room, raising your voice, things like that can have an impact. And also another thing that tends to happen is sometimes it could be the woman shouting, raising a voice at her partner, or vice versa. It could be a child witnessing violent behavior between the parents. And also, yeah, that can impact on a child. Some children end up committing suicide. I don't want you to think that this is only particular for one race. It happens within the African Caribbean culture. And sometimes you see a child becoming violent. You see a child just lashing out. You see a child not being able to sleep well, not being able to concentrate to school. You see a child growing up to be that same way, and you see a child treating their sibling wrong. And when you see cases like, when you see a child acting out, you'll be wondering, okay, maybe there's a demon inside this child. No, you need to, there's a place of demon, don't get me wrong, in terms of the spiritual matter, but you need to be considering the triggers. What is triggering this behavior? You need to look what is happening in that child's environment. Is it within the home or outside of the home? When an argument is going on in the household, as partners, as husband and wife, as parents, as families, you need to be mindful of your voice. You need to be mindful of what you're saying, how the disagreement is going. Is it becoming heated? And also, are you experiencing domestic violence as well? Or domestic abuse? Is your spouse speaking so negatively at you in front of your children? And can I just say, we've been talking about in front of children. Sometimes the impact after also children feels it. Let's say you're experiencing domestic violence or abuse constantly from your spouse. Aftermath, you're probably tired. You probably can't parent properly. Things like that impact on a child in terms of how you can be your physical presence in that house will be affected in terms of how you want to show that love to a child. So many things come into place. Yes, speaking negatively to a child, we need to be mindful. It doesn't have to come to saying you're stupid. You can be saying, oh, you're not good at math. You're never going to be good at math. It could be as simple as that. Oh, you're too short. Oh, you're too fat. Oh, I don't think you will make it. We need to be reframing our language, because if not, it is a form of an emotional abuse. And I'm sure everybody on this line, you don't want to emotionally abuse your child. I don't think it's anybody's aim to abuse their child. So please, let's be mindful of our language. Let's be mindful of what our children are being exposed to. Do we have any comments there? Any contributions at all when it comes to emotional abuse? Anybody, positive affirmation, fantastic. Speaking positive, you're good enough. You're clever, you're intelligent. I was listening to a podcast today, and the lady said she wanted to study medicine, but somebody said to her she can never study medicine. She's never good enough. This was not even a parent saying that to her. It was an outsider. So we need to be mindful how people outside, whether it could be from school, friends and family, how they're emotionally abusing our children. And guess what? She failed the exam. She couldn't get into, I think she probably didn't get into medical school, or it affected her grades. But then she decided to change her mindset to say, yes, I am good enough. I can do this. The people studying medicine, they're not as better than me. And guess what? She went through medical school without failing at all. So Queen B said, be mindful of how you judge your child and how you judge other people's children. That could constitute emotional abuse. Be mindful of your language, okay? But the big thing that I know people are not conscious of is shouting, raising their voice to their spouse in the house, children hearing that. We need to be modeling the right behavior. Okay. Yetunde left a comment. One thing I usually use as a gauge is if I can't say this or this to a big person, I think twice before saying or doing to my toddler. Little people are people too. That's true. Modest said my dad used a slang when he was angry with us. He said it in Yoruba, loosely translated, your head like human beings there, just so it doesn't say negative. Yeah, I like that. So what Bodesola is trying to say, maybe when you want to speak negative, come up with something else that you would say. Some people, when they want to say something negative to a child, they just say, oh, bless you. Oh, sugar. Oh, they'll just come up with something, but that something is an affirmation. It's not something negative, okay? Any other contribution, please feel free to use the comment section to chat, okay? I'm gonna, because of our time, we should be finishing at 9:30. Please, if you have any further question after our session, please feel free to email. I'm gonna type the email there now. We are getting some messages also from Truly Making a Difference. I believe also we have Truly Making a Difference email online. You can email trulymakingadifference@gmail.com, okay? Please feel free to send us an email. The Family Corner segment of Truly Making a Difference will be hosting Family Matter conferences quarterly every 3 months, okay? So I'm just gonna talk about, thank you, Michelle, for the segment of emotional abuse, okay? I'm just gonna talk about leaving children at home. Okay, before I start, I'd like to know your thoughts. At what age can you leave your child alone at home? Neglect is a big subject, so we're gonna be talking about leaving children alone at home. At what age do you think we should be leaving our children alone at home? Please feel free to comment. At what age should we be leaving our children alone at home? Maybe 14, okay, 12. Okay, there is no legal age, Charlene said. 16 years, no legal age, 14. Okay, at what age should we be leaving? Okay, I've not seen anybody saying a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. This is good. Well done, everyone. Give yourself, I'm a mother. I would say give yourself high five, fist bump, super duper. Okay, I like, Tell me fantastic comment there. Every child is different. When you feel your child is ready. Okay, let me just go over my point now. Yes, you are right, Charlene. There is no legal age a child can be left home alone. Every child is different. Every child matures differently. So it will be almost impossible to have a one-size-fits-all. That's why there is no legal age. However, I must let you know, because we're talking neglect here, the aspects of the law also has different areas. And we have some guidelines that we follow through NSPCC. Parents and carers are responsible for keeping their children safe. If leaving your child home alone put them at risk of harm because they're too young to care for themselves, if a child is too young to care for themselves and you leave them alone at home and something happened to them, a form of the safety was compromised, the law might consider this as neglect. A child who isn't old enough or who doesn't feel comfortable should never be left alone. So a child that doesn't feel comfortable to be left alone must not be left alone, okay? It's best for you to look into alternative arrangement, childcare option, family and friend, if that's what you believe in, okay? And I need to let you know some things. Babies and toddlers should never be left alone. No social workers or police will embrace that. Babies and toddlers should never be left home alone. Children under 3, we do not recommend that you should leave them alone. In fact, children under 3, we do not recommend for you to leave them alone for more than under 15 minutes. I know it's very tempting for parents that, especially for under 3, you want to get their cold turn, you want to quickly go to the corner shop that is probably 1 minute away. You're thinking, I can quickly leave them alone and just quickly grab something. No, it's so tempting, but do not do it, okay? You do not want to compromise their safety. I know you think, okay, I'm only popping down the road. This is, even though there's no legal aid, this will be seen as a form of neglect, okay? When it comes to children under 12, we do not recommend children under 12 should be left alone for long. You can leave them alone, okay? But not for too long. You would have to gauge what long is, okay? When I'm talking about long, children under 12 should not be left alone overnight, okay? And we know sometimes within the African and Caribbean culture, Some people work a lot. We do not recommend for you to do a long shift from 7 to 7 and leave children under 12 alone at home, or to do a night shift and leave the children alone at home, okay? Okay? And also what I would like to say, in children in primary school, we normally recommend for them not to walk alone, going from home to school, okay? For them to be walking alone. It's good for them to tag along with an adult or something, okay? And like I said, we do not recommend for you to be leaving children under 12. And ideally, children under 16, we do not really recommend for you to be leaving them alone overnight, okay? Overnight. Obviously, emergency situation, you may need to quickly go into A&E, but call an auntie, call a friend to come and pop into the house to check up on the child while they're sleeping, okay? You need to consider the safety measures as well, the electricity, the heat. What if something dangerous object? What if something happened, okay? What if the child then open? We have cases of a child opening the door. The child has never opened the door before. Never open, and then you will see the child out on the road, out on the street, because the child has been left alone. The parent just pop into the corner shop. So things like that. And as parent with children on the 5, and make sure that you lock your door. If you've got the arch behind your door, please use it, okay? So when it comes to the law, okay, children under 3, please do not leave them alone at home, regardless, even if it's 2 minutes. I know also there's one I've done before. I would never do that again. I went to buy fuel and I went inside to pay and I locked my car. However, I didn't see right with me. So even if I'm going to buy fuel, I would rather I came up with an alternative. I only did it one-off a while, but one-off could be very dangerous. I just look for the pump that you can pay using the card. If not, I go in the night when my husband is around, okay? Do we have any question when it comes to leaving children alone at home? Is each case, a child could be 12, but that child is not ready to be left alone for 3-4 hours. Judge your child. And if you are to leave them, if something was to happen, you need to let them know. They need to ring this person. Do they know what to do if there was a form of emergency in the house, who to ring, who to contact? You need to have all those information. Do they have a phone? Do they know who to ring? Okay. So just because your child is older doesn't necessarily mean they are ready to look after themselves. Another one that I need to let you know when it comes to siblings, you need to be asking the child, is that child ready to supervise their younger sibling? Sometimes parents make an assumption that a 13-year-old is ready to look after their 5-year-old. A conversation could take place at school to say, okay, I'll give you an example. Oh, Stephanie, oh, okay. Stephanie said, oh, I'm always looking after my brother. I'm always looking after John. Mommy's always going to work over the weekend. She goes out 7 to 7. She's not back till late. I'm always looking after John. I'm always looking after John. That conversation should be taking place at home. Mom needs to be asking Stephanie, okay, I know I'm leaving John with you. How is it going? You need not to be doing it constantly, consistently, okay? This is a big subject, but we just said we should cover it very briefly. At what age can you leave a younger child with an older child? I think for children over 13, really, they can stay with recommended they can stay with their sibling, but we would not recommend a 13-year-old looking after under 3. We would not recommend it for them to look after toddlers. It's not going to be a recommendation. And for that 13-year-old needs to be comfortable to be left alone with, let's say, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old. They need to be aware of the safety measures in the house, etc. So you see why there's no legal age. You need to be, there's so many factors to be considered. Do we have any questions, any contributions? In terms of, Michelle, everything you pick, what is it an abuse when kids sleep late or when babies cry? It is not abuse. However, we sometimes get anonymous referral or neighbors referral saying they're hearing baby crying really loud because the neighbors are concerned maybe the baby is being abused or not. Yeah, a social worker may speak to you over the phone, they may close the case, or because a baby, they want to still come out to see what is happening, but they will eventually close the case. If it's something wrong with the child, they will ask you to liaise with your health visitor, okay? They will also look at the child record just to know what's happening to a baby. Is it an abuse when kids sleep late? It is not an abuse when a child sleeps late, but obviously we know it's good for a child to have good routine. Truly Making a Difference Ministry has a channel on YouTube. And as part of the Family Corner segment, we're going to be talking about routine, establishing age-appropriate routine for children. Okay, any question, Michelle? I have 2 tasks for you right now before we wrap up. Can you just give us 2 points about physical chastisement law in Canada? What should parents be aware of? What would you like them to take away?
Well, I just want them to be aware of, in terms of what they use, what is seen to be reasonable. So, for example, parents should not be, using physical chastisement as a reaction of anger. So that's one of the things I would say to take away, having self-control. I know it may be tempting or difficult in the moment or situation, but think of the consequence, how you reacting will be if something was to be worse than it is. So in terms of like them slapping their child, how it would, they might hit their child thinking it's soft, but then in the moment slap hard, then that child suffers a bruise. So I'm thinking about, if you lay your hand on the child, may they be subject to abuse, and then therefore this may, compromise how, it would be seen to be physical abuse. So that's one of the things I would tell them to take away. Second will be, trying at all costs to use other alternatives of discipline and using physical chastisement as a last result. That's all I can stress, that try and use other methods of discipline.
And I think
just to avoid that, because children, sorry to cut you short, children these days, they do talk out. Even they might just be talking amongst friends at school, not intentionally wanting to get parents into trouble, but they will talk. And then, it's then, teachers will start then questioning, then it, escalates things. So to avoid yourself with, just getting in that moment, is just to avoid, using physical chastisement as a discipline if you can.
Thank you, Michelle. Very, 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 very fantastic. One thing I said I picked up from the Canadian point that you said was under 3 is against the law for under 3 to be spanked. Did you say that?
Under
2.
Under 2 and over 12.
And over 12. So between age 2 and 11, what is the Canadian law saying?
So between 2 and 11, parents can use physical chastisement as a form of transport within reasonable.
It's so similar to UK then, within reasonable. And who's going to decide that reasonable? Probably you guys, social workers, and the police.
Yeah, so basically you can't use an implement. So if you use it, you can't use any form of implement, whether it's a shoe, whether it's a belt or anything, that's considered abuse. So that wipes off what is deemed reasonable as physical chastisement.
That's the same as the UK. You can't use any implement.
And also you cannot leave a mark. So the minute, even if you use your hand, some people some children, they easily bruise up. I know if I get hit, my face skin, I may not be hit hard, but I bruise easily. So the fact that a bruise is left, even though it wasn't the intention to leave a bruise or the mark or it may not have been hard enough to cause that will be also seen as abuse when there's a mark or bruise left because of your action from physical chastisement.
Okay, thank you, Misha. I'm just going to take 3 more questions. I've seen 2 there and 1 more, and then we're going to be closing. If you have any other question, I am happy to do something, okay? For you to wait after everybody has gone, and then we can take your question. If you're okay with that. Okay, B said, is it okay to leave a child in the sitting room, for example, if you're working from home on another floor in the same house or doing something for a long time in another room? What I'll be asking you, P, is how old is that child? Okay, obviously for under 3, you can't leave them in another room while you're working in another room. There needs to be another adult supervising that child, okay? However, because obviously working from home in this pandemic, most organizations, they are very reasonable, okay? If you can't really be having a lot of people in the house anyway, except they're part of your bubbles, what we would be advising is for all of you to work for you to be in the same place. It depends on the age of the child. If it's a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, you can leave them in another room, but you have to keep checking on them. Keep checking on them, keep checking on them. George, thanks so much. Really learn a lot. Somebody asked a question. If you can repeat that question, the question mentioned about a child was exhibiting behavioral issues, and they referred the case, the social services closed the case. If you are happy to wait after for us to really know the context of this case, we will be happy to contribute. If I eat a child and leaves a mark, what do I do? Do I report myself? Obviously, if it was a past incident, it's past is past. It's about you learning. That's why people have attended this training. We have sown the seed so that you know now, and you can pass this knowledge on to other people as well, okay? Things that have happened in the past, mistake, we can't do anything about mistake, but we can do something about the present and the future, okay? Any more questions? Please, before we go now, please share one thing that you're taking away. I'm sure you're taking away a lot of things, but share one thing that we are taking away. I would suggest that you reflect and do not do it again. Please, can we share one thing? I need Michelle to know, and I want to know that you have gained something. Write one comment for me to know you've gained something. And thank you, everybody. We had 66 people when we started. Thank you to all the professionals in the house. Thank you to Nisha. Thank you, Charlene, for your contribution. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Bomu, be consistent with your correction measure. Thank you, everyone. Please, I need you to write one thing you're taking away. I will seek other means of correcting them and stop chastising Sharon. Tell me, when my daughter is in, I can't wait to turn the Wi-Fi up if she misbehaves. Monesola said a lot, self-control, don't react in anger. Bomu said that's what she's taking away. Anybody else? 53 people are right online. What are you taking away? Let us know what you are taking away. Esther's company setting boundary. I always said one thing I'm gonna away is not to say I'd beat you when I'm not beating my child. Tammy said thank you for your time. The Wi-Fi was a great option. Tolu said use other means of method of correction. Sharon said no physical abuse. Tanisha, always seek help if you're struggling. Yes, learned about the timeout thing and being firm. Yetunde said be intentional about parenting. Sharon said mind my use of what. Pastor Faith said control your emotions and do not react in anger. Adola said physical chastisement as last resort. Alice said, thank you so much for your time. Jibola said, have boundary. Sharon said, be assertive. Ruth Baker said, thank you. Femi said, be intentional and control your emotion. Bibi and Lai said, watch your words when your kids are around. Esther said, just avoid the beat. Olufemi said, thank you so much for your time. Okay, please, thank you everyone for joining. Fantastic. Thank you for attending this free conference. All our conferences, they will be free because this is a Christian ministry truly making a difference. We will not be charging you for this conference. And thank you so much, Michelle, because obviously truly making a difference is a charitable religious organization. We have not paid you. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you obviously to every attendees as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone. Do have a lovely evening. If you do have a question that we haven't answered, we are happy to wait online for 5 minutes to answer your question. Alternatively, truly make a difference has left a message there for you to email us. Your email will be treated as strictly as confidential, truly making a difference, okay?
And we'll also be sharing the video for people that did not have the opportunity to join this session. We will share what we've learned and what we've discussed here across YouTube and Facebook.
Yes, that's the email that truly made a difference. Comment. Okay, thank you, everyone. Feel free, you can start going. God bless you. Thank you for joining. I mean, self-control, that was hammered on. Self-control, self-control. Is this conference recorded and can it be shared? Yes, this conference is being recorded. It will be on Truly Making a Difference ministry page on YouTube. So like, go on YouTube, search for Truly Making a Difference, okay? It will be on YouTube. And if you've registered to attend this conference, I might also send you the link because I've got all the attendees email via Eventbrite. We've got all your emails. So if you've got any question, please stay behind. I can see somebody raising their hands. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a lovely evening, have a lovely afternoon, have a lovely morning, wherever you're located. God bless you. Thank you so much, Tanisha. Thank you for your child protection specialist. Obviously, your expertise there. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Ruth Baker. Thank you, Mrs. Fumi, as well. Thank you, everyone.
And everyone who shared.
Thank you, everyone. Fantastic contributions by everyone as well. Fantastic. Okay, so question, we're happy to answer. We've got some experts here, okay? Okay, your question, feel free to ask. You've got an issue there. Happy to answer. You got me.
If people want to talk, they can talk.
You cannot, if you want to talk, please feel free.
To unmute.
Do I need to, you can unmute yourself. Who want to say something? I think Annabelle wants to. Do we have to unmute you?
Or you can raise your hand and you unmute them.
Okay, let me see. How do you do that?
Just click on them, next to them,
Okay.
it says unmute.
Hi, Anna.
Hello. Hi. I have a question.
We didn't have a phone.
For example, those kids that they've been taken away from the parents because the social workers, they assume that the parents, they are not really doing their job as a parent. And then, so the social workers put them in like, I would say in a nursing home. And then those kids, they are using drugs.